Hi everybody, I'm James and this is my Spitfire. In today's video we're going through this big box of parts I've got all the way from the UK to New Zealand. All sorts of things for the car. Some of them will even be fitting on the car as time allows. Okay, so here we go. Okay, first up we have weather related components. We've got upper A posts seals for the door glass to sit against. Currently rattles, so that should help with that. So one for each door, and a couple of outer weather seals for the windows on the doors as well. Also should help with the rattling, and the connectors to go with those. We have a seal for the boot lid. The one on there is a modern type where the seal sits at a right angle to the lip. And that isn't suitable really for a 1960s car because they aren't made like that. And then we've got some new wiper blades, two of. The ones currently on the car are the wrong type, so they wobble around. These new ones should sort that out. So the A-pillar seal glues in here. I'll do that at a later date, as with the door weather seal, outer weather seal that goes along here, same as most cars. That has clips that go inside the door, up between the glass and the outer skin of the door to hold it in place, so it's a bit of a pain in the ass I think to fit. There is a special tool you can get for that. I'll probably end up fashioning one myself if it's needed. Yeah, that's an awkward job which I'll save for another day. Right, so we see here the different profiles of the current boot seal. You can see this sort of side-by-side design of the current one, which is a more contemporary design, and you can see the rubber there, particularly on the back where the lip faces outwards, is doing very little, whereas the profile of the new seal, you can see it's a much simpler design which should work much better with the way the boot closes, with the lips facing outwards or up around the edges of the boot. Okay, so on to the window wipers. You can see here what I was talking about before. These wobble around all over the place. That's because the bracket on these is from the Spitfire Mark IV type or other more modern Triumphs. That's 7.2 millimeters wide, whereas the new ones I've bought are the original width of 5.2 or something to that extent anyway. So just pop those out like that. There's a little spring in the back and a knob that locates in the top of the clip. And these should, with a bit of force, just pop in, just like so. That is much better. Almost no lateral movement. Let's swap this one out as well. There we go, making sure you don't let that hit the glass. Oops. Try this box. So again, just spring clip there, over the top of the spring clip, underneath the outer side of the clip, and locks into place just like that. Now let's see how they go. Check they're not going to scratch the windscreen. Don't think so. Right, let's turn that on. That is 100 times better than what it was before. The reason I didn't show you the before work is because the old ones would scratch the windscreen, and I've only just replaced this windscreen. It's one of the first things I did to the car. Next up, some more nice to have items. Here we have the window screen chrome surround to go in the windscreen trim, make it look a little fancier. I have a new washer pump and knob and bottle for that. The car's obviously had it installed in the past. The nozzles are there, but nothing else, so we'll get that installed. And something that is kind of useful around Wellington streets, some side mirrors for reversing, parking, getting in and out of my driveway. That'll make life a lot easier for me, because even though it's a very small car, Wellington has some very small streets, so that will be a boon to the work. Okay, so the chrome trim for the windscreen surround fits in this little lip here, and that's kind of not a very important job, so I'm going to leave that for another day. So you can see here we do have the nozzles for the windscreen washer in place. That one needs turning around a bit, but it's not tight at the moment. And a very large hole where that washer control and pump should fit. So we'll get that fitted in when we get to the dashboard. Okay, so the side mirrors usually the mount around about here on the doors or further forward on the bonnet. I think for my purposes I'm going to look to mount them on the doors because that's more what I'm used to in a modern vehicle. It's going to take a bit of finagling to get them in the right position, so I'll probably look to do that another day and make sure I'm only drilling those holes once. So next up we have some door and bonnet hardware. We start off with new check straps for both doors because they're in a sorry state. With that we've got the clips that they latch into and the retaining clips that hold them in place. We also have new locating pins for the bonnet. These locate into holes in the body when you close it so that it all sits nicely. The ones there at the moment have no rubber left on them, so it's pretty much just a bolt head sitting on a piece of metal doing very little. And lastly, just some new hardware, all nice and matching and shiny, to attach the bonnet catches that you latch the bonnet down with, because after many years the hardware that's on there is all random and different lengths and different types and doing rather a poor job of actually holding the latches in the right place. So we'll get that changed out and it'll make that all work much better, I think. Okay, so we can see here the locating pin for the bonnet. The current one is completely stuffed on this side and much the same on the other side too. And we can also see the very random collection of bolts holding the bonnet catch in place, making poor showing on the outside. And same again on the other side as well. And here we have the mating plates for those bonnet pins. You can see here this is a circular plate with a recess in it. That is obviously adjustable, as is the height of that pin, as it's a bolt into a nut. So using those adjustments we get everything to locate properly. Right, now we have some other interior bits and bobs. We have new bolts for the windscreen to bolt that down. These go along the top of the dash with these little, well, I guess they're technically washers, but they, I guess they're retaining plates that hold everything in place. I've got some little name badge clips because the lettering on the boot has no clips on it at all. It's just held in there by magic, so we'll get that sorted out. I have some seals for the fuel tank. This is for the cap, and this one is for the sender. We have some general screws and cup washers to standardise all the way everything's screwed down inside the cabin of the car. I have a new switch to replace one that's broken on the dashboard, and that's just a new simple 2-position switch. And then I also have a new push-pull switch to and a knob for that to, well, possibly go in place of the light switch. Currently it is just a very aftermarket electronic shop job sitting there, and it's in the wrong place. So I may do that. I may also use it for something else depending on what the layout ends up looking like, because it's very non-standard at the moment. Then we've got a heater control valve, because there isn't one at the moment, so I just get hot air all the time, which is okay in winter, but I'm thinking in summer that won't be such a nice idea. And then some connecting pieces to re-implement the horn on the car. So we have the wiper contact plate that goes in the base of the steering wheel surround, the actual sprung wiper rod that goes through the steering wheel, and the little clip to hold the horn button. So at the moment I've got the steering wheel, the surround and the button, but none of the gubbins that goes in. So that will solve that problem. Okay, here we see the dashboard in its rather untidy state with things mixed up all over the place. Here is the switch that was broken. I've taken that out and put it aside. This funny little thing here I think might have been an electric washer motor or something in the past. At the moment, well, when I got the car, it was basically just terminated to a floating wire that just put direct battery voltage into wherever it was touching. Here's the hole for the washer pump. The windscreen wiper switch I think is in the right place. Choke is in the right place. The key isn't. That should be either up here or over here. This is the switch, aftermarket switch I talked about, that I'll look to replace with the push-pull switch. If I do, I think that will end up in the bottom row. I have to double check all my notes. This is the heater valve control. It currently goes to the cable, which is still there luckily, but the cable is connected to nothing because the pipes for the cabin radiator just are plumbed directly with no control. So I'll be looking to clean all that up and get as much of it working as I can. Now parts for the engine and drivetrain. So, to start with, I have a full set of bottom end gaskets for the engine because there's oil everywhere. I'll probably just start with the sump gasket though, because that's relatively easy to fit. Also with that I have front and rear crankshaft seals, and also engine related I have the accelerator pedal pivot pin bearing. This goes in the bulkhead between the cabin and the engine bay and holds that pivot in place so the accelerator doesn't wobble around the place like it does at the moment. And I also have a little felt washer to go on the dipstick because that, well, it doesn't have a dipstick tube, and I figure the felt will at least go some way towards sealing up that problem until I can get a new one sourced, because they're not easily available from all my looking around. Also have new engine mounts. These are relatively cheap. The ones in the car are okay but old and a bit perished. Because these are relatively cheap, I thought I may as well just get them and change it out while I'm working on the engine. Next up, transmission stuff. Also got some transmission mounts for the transmission, a rear oil seal and a full set of gaskets for the transmission. I haven't got the front oil seal because that's rather more complicated and expensive, and I wasn't really sure how that all went together. I'll figure out whether I need that or not once I get the transmission on the bench and start looking at it. Yeah, so that brings me to the main reason I went shopping in the first place, which is the pivot pin for the transmission, sorry, the clutch fork. At the moment the pivot pin in the transmission is hanging out the bottom, and that isn't very good, and I didn't really want to drive it again with that like that in case I lost all access to clutch. So that will be replaced when I pull the transmission out. This new one has a circlip attached. I don't think the original design did have, so hopefully that will help to hold the pin in the right place and prevent this happening in future. And there's also a tolerance ring that goes on the clutch fork pin. And next up we have a new rev counter cable. The rev counter's not happy. I know the cable's broken from testing it. I think there's probably some problems with the rev counter itself as well. I haven't had a chance to pull that to bits yet. But we'll get the cable changed out anyway. And then we've got seals for the diff, so a new gasket and the drive shaft and main pinion seals to go in to stop that leaking, hopefully. So, a lot of things to help the car stop leaking and other bits and pieces. Right, let's see what happens when we change the tacho cable over. First thing, for a comparison of the before state, obviously our needle inside the rev counter is a little lost. As you can hear by the lack of noise, the engine is not running at all at the moment, so it's certainly not doing 5,200 RPM. So let's turn it on and I'll show you how it's moving around at the moment. So you can see there, it's flicking back and forth all over the place. Alright, so to change the cable, we need to obviously disconnect it from the rev counter. At this end to start with, you can see here there's no real protection in the way to get to all the wiring, so I can just reach in here and unscrew it. It's just finger tight, as it should be, because it's a screw connection, hand screw connection. Oh, and now oh, there we go. Bit of pressure on the back there. So it's just a short cable, straight run to the engine So that is now free. If we show you the problem, if I just get in there, there we go. That isn't meant to come out. Okay, so now the other end. This connects on underneath the distributor. Yeah, right there. So, hopefully I just reach in here. This will come off. Bloody well should come off. I've had it off before I ordered the part. There we go. Right, pull that off. There's an end. There we go. That's all meant to be one piece. Okay, now we'll pull that out. Oh, it's a bit tight here under the regulator. I'll just switch the camera off and come back to this. So I managed to get that out. I had to actually move the regulator box out of the way to get to the hole that it was being passed through. But we got there. Now before I put the new part on, something you should always do, unless you're 100% certain already, is double check the supplier sent you the right thing. So see, our length is approximately correct. A little longer, which isn't a bad thing. It'll just give a little more room to pull the rev counter out of the dash. Our connections are the same, with the same thread pitch by the look of it. Pick those up. Put them both in the light. You can see there. And the same at the other end as well. There we go. So, right, let's get the new one in. The hole we need to pass through here, but this passes through into another wall, which is the back of the heater. Okay, we've got the cable in and a new grommet. So if we go around the other side, I'll just show you a little trick to get the cable through the second wall. Obviously getting the loose backing shell through is a bit awkward if you just leave it loose. So what I've done is actually taped it a few inches back from the end of the cable. That way I can get the start of the cable through and grab onto that and pull the back shell through the inner hole without any issues. So I'll now go and connect that up opposite to taking it off, so I'll come back to you once we're ready to test it. The cable's all nice and connected now, all snug and done up. Let's see what the rev counter does this time. As you can see, our needle of randomness has gotten back to 0. But, let's see what happens when we turn it over. Okay, no huge improvement there, but the cable was still busted and needed changing. What I'm guessing is happening is the rotating part of the mechanism is contacting the part that actually holds the needle. They're meant to only be connected by a magnetic force, or so yes, I will have to pull the rev counter to bits to get that running properly. Just a second thought, there's also the fact that could just be a broken spring maybe doing this. Okay, in case you were wondering, I got all the parts from Rimmer Brothers in the UK. I'll put a link in the description below. I'm not associated with them, I just found them through recommendations and searching the internet. Chose them because the website was really easy to use and really clear on all the information. They show dates of when they expect to get parts in that are out of stock and all sorts of good things like that. They also have a good range of OEM Lucas parts for British vehicles and a whole range of other OEM equivalent parts as well. So yeah, they pretty much had everything I needed, and I was also very pleased the order I placed took only a week, or just over a week, to get to me from the UK to New Zealand, half the way around the world. So in the middle of the pandemic that we're in at the moment in 2021, that was quite impressive. Under a week to get to New Zealand, and then just a few days on the through customs and on the courier to get to me after that. So very happy with that service, happy with all the parts so far, and yeah, I'll probably be shopping there again, but there are a few other places I might try based on other recommendations, and we'll see how that goes in the future. Right, well, that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and please go ahead and like the video if you did. Consider subscribing, that'd be much appreciated as I grow this new channel. Comment below if you've got any questions or just want to say hello, and yeah, ring that bell icon if you really want to get the algorithm working on YouTube for me. Anything like that would be much appreciated. So I'm James, this is my Spitfire. See you all again next time. Bye.